Okay, well, I am Rustin Larson, and I thought I'd start reading from the New Yorker, and I had a poem recently published in it on January 13th, 2014, and it's a rather short poem, and you've probably heard it either on the radio or have seen it in the library by now, but it's called A Philosopher Savant. The Philosopher Savant Takes a Walk. And it's all about walking to the post office in Fairfield. That doesn't give anything away. The poem's just what it is. The Philosopher Savant takes a walk. On my way to the post office this morning, I was feeling pretty balanced, pretty good. I looked at the movie posters. I passed the tattoo and piercing establishment. Some restaurant was frying up a batch of onions. I got over that and kept walking. I retrieved my mail. If I can be someone's entertainment by being myself, I have no regrets. I believed in my footsteps. I crossed to walk through the gazebo. There were a few marigolds. The sun was tilted and coolly golden. A crippled woman watched me from her car. It was a Tuesday. I remember that much. I'm going to read a poem from my latest book, Bum Cantos, Winter Jazz and the Collected Discography of Morning. Winner of the 2013 Blue Light Book Award and out with Blue Light Press. So, out of the book from page 36, Earth and Today. I cook meals at this little place. Same 5 customers every evening. It overlooks the tennis courts, and sometimes 2 beefy girls swat a ball across the net until some of the lower stars weep. Generally, I amaze my diners with the many variations of fowl with sauce I concoct. Each dish served with a refreshing dry white. Now, though, the kitchen cleared and the pans drying on their racks, I sit in my room and listen for the few passers-by on the darkened courts, the smell of rose incense drifting from someplace. The girl squeals, and I know she is with that same fellow, walking to the park and the trails through the oak trees. Their voices grow fainter as they walk, their silhouettes against cold April. If I close my eyes, I can almost hear the edge of the world scraping against some distant light, some change of earth into day, where markets are opening and vegetables and flowers light the roads with their colors. I don't know if I'll ever go there. I play a few chords on my guitar, then sip some wine, then recline my head on a stack of 3 pillows and wait for sleep to overtake me. This is from my book, Crazy Star, 2004, Les Hills Books, 100 years ago. So, okay. Here is another poem that originally appeared in the New Yorker in 1992, in September 21st, 1992. So that's my appearance in the New Yorker. Every 22 years I appear in the New Yorker. So I'll be in my 70s the next time I get a poem in the New Yorker. So I have that to look forward to. Just thought I'd put that in perspective. Okay. The paternal side. 1840, bespectacled, balding, hands quivering from too much coffee, as you sell peppermints in Larvik, Norway, to Kirsten, the grammar school girl on her way to the wharf with her grandfather's lunch of kippers and goat's milk. You keep shop, mildly educated, mind shadowed by your God and the thick black hymnals on Sunday, and the 2 little sugar in your mother-in-law's apple pastry after roasted snow goose and bitter ale. Your name is Thomas, Edward, Carl, and Henry. You want to travel to America, and have a little more land to raise your apprehensions, some new water, diseases, smells to record in your leaden book lying open like the breast of a grave in snow, a deep rectangle of relief before spring in the short days of imperially taxed whale oil and tooth decay. You want to come to Iowa to open a little grocery, to be someone with a little power over destiny and cheese as the sun illuminates the lumber wagons and stone crosses the immaculate cash drawer. This one's called Melons. Melons, you bought one, perfectly ripe, but within days, little holes appeared, and it began to shrink from inside like a consumptive. Time after time, we'd buy the sweet-smelling globes, and they'd rot. You said we had bad luck with melons. I said we were cursed. And so it was we wandered the earth dreaming of the perfect, incorruptible melon. We would walk by a woman and think of melons. We would walk by a man with large knees and think of melons. Even when we were spending money on clothes, we would think we were dealing out melon leaves, thick and prickly, always leaving a trace on our hands. Our clothes became melon rinds, and our fingers slivers of ripe yellow melon. So when was it we stopped thinking of these things? I think it was the day in the supermarket when you said to me, "Russ, I can't live like this anymore," and walked off, leaving me to contemplate the absence of melons and their traces, their juices and their mold. Why should I live like this either, I thought, and sat down on a crate and weighed my big round head in my hands. Okay, now I'll read the puking dog poem. See, this was another one that was, it was a big hit at the Des Moines National Poetry Festival. I read it there. And probably that was the one time where I got the most laughs, you know. A lot of people there, so they kind of egged each other on, I guess. But it's one called Cleo. Cleo was a basset hound, overweight, lazy, and sad. She had gastric distress often, produced horrible smelling farts, vomited in great gushes, left her crap in Dairy Queen swirls near my swing set and everywhere else. She chewed pork chop bones, which she defended with low, barely audible growls, and she would choke invariably and stagger around the yard, making great rasping honks that nauseated me. One day a milk truck hit her and broke her hip, and when she healed, she walked with her butt swinging sexily like Susan Hayward in I Want to Live. We kicked her away from our garbage, but she always returned, and since she was not our dog, we could not kill her. I wanted to be clear, I harbored no love for this creature, and when she died, I shed practically no tears at all. It is only now that I am middle-aged and ailing, I think of her with respect, as I respect all of God's creatures, including the unfortunate and broken. If there is forgiveness in memory, let there be that, and all our bones dulled by the teeth that erode, the rains that come, and the sweet milk of the earth. Well, here's a poem that Michael Carey insisted should go into this book, Crazy Star. I had personally overlooked it, and I don't know why, but he seemed to like this one really a lot, and a lot of people like it as well. It's called A Woman Praying to Her Umbrella. There is a woman praying to her umbrella, her hands clasped around the handle and her forehead pressed against her hands. Her eyes are closed. I can almost see them fluttering, though I know she is deep in prayer to her God, who has something to do with rain or staying dry. There are many people on this train. They all have their little umbrella gods, though not all of them are praying as fervently as this brown woman in front of me. Perhaps she is praying for me, who forgot my umbrella, or omnisciently for my wife, who also forgot her umbrella, who is driving to the dentist elsewhere in the city on this gray, wet morning, which appears to want to bless us equally. I don't know if I read this one at my book launch, or I don't think I did. I think I just read, I kind of stuck with things like the Bum Canto poems. But this one is called Rummage, and it's dedicated to my mother, and it deals with the old neighborhood I lived in Des Moines, Iowa, which was, so you get the idea when I read this. Rummage. I ransack money from the dead, sell their bowling balls and tap dance shoes. A loud rock band parades itself down the block, a tricked out Camaro, 2 subwoofers. Our neighborhood drops another board or two. The fences rot. Drugs are dealt under the street light near our mailbox. The storms have ceased to come through, their moody bruise purple hanging in the north. There's the intersection where the gun battle took place. The hostage, some lady we didn't know, nailed by cops' bullets. They landed a medevac over there. You had to fly to non-existence without your neighborhood, without your Christmas twinkle lights, your can of snow spray, your good 50-pound box of recipes. Maybe a snow will come this year. Maybe the footprints of a tiny child walking to school with her backpack and lunch. The snow with how many arms? We emptied the house of Dad's tattered shirts, your black bear of a winter coat, the golf tees, the jewelry box with the silver certificate, the Morgan dollar you thought would be worth thousands by now, the table scarred by the burning toaster, no more meals, no more hash browns, especially not near the window and the way the sun came in to blind you, breakfast over the steam of your coffee. It blinded me, the place I sat after your funeral. Dad would not speak to me, but lived in the silence of memory, rooted the last of his disgust, and tossed it on the table with dirty radishes. Finally said to me, because he could not say it otherwise, though I looked around the house and could see me as a child in illness near the few sources of warmth there were, the squares of sun, the grate of the furnace, supine, bronchitis-prone, unwitting addict to the codeine in Formula 44, constipated in various attitudes of discomfort and pain, grimacing at the suppository rammed up my ass by a caring finger, he said, "She loved you. You know that." Growing up in Des Moines, it was like I lived on 10th Street, and it was like a straight shot on my bicycle down to the pharmacy to sit at their fountain and drink Cokes and whatever sugary concoction they made there. And I don't know, it was an okay. I lived right across the street from my school, so playing hooky was a virtual impossibility. It was just a very mundane Midwestern life. Bullies, rabid dogs, you know. My dad was a television technician, and he also had a store where he sold electronics. And I would work for him once I got a little bit older. Actually, he put me to work, earlier, separating hardware, like when I was 10, as long as I could stand that for 50 cents an hour. So yeah, it was a quiet place, I think, to live. In my mind, at least, it was quiet. A lot of interesting things happen. There's plenty of crime and violence around, but I think there was I think there was a quiet place always in my mind to go to, and I was always attracted to that sort of thing. And I think I didn't start writing poetry right away, but at least I started doing song lyrics, and with a friend next door we compiled a book of song lyrics, and we would record these songs and put them on cassette tapes. I'm not saying that they were any good, but we did it anyway, and we were kind of aiming for outrageousness and humor anyway, and I doubt if any of these things have survived, but I remember them well, and it was kind of a good energy builder, a good way to get rolling and get things moving with words. And I didn't even know, that was going to be a primary focus in my later life, but it did happen that way. Things started to get more encouraging when I went to high school, and especially in my senior year when I started taking creative writing courses. And then teachers would start telling me that, that I seemed to have some ability to write poetry. And I foolishly believed them and continued with it. And it's been just a devastating, horrible experience. There's no money in poetry at all, but I continue to do it every chance I get, and I'm proud to say that. Yeah. Oh, yeah, well, I do the practical thing, I do teaching, and then I work in a library, and that keeps me right at poverty level, and I guess, it's a life. Mm-hmm.
Your life is in your relationship to your stories there.
Yeah, well, it's a means of expressing things that have happened to me, reflecting on things that have happened to me. And as someone in an interview I recently conducted, it was another poet I was interviewing, and we likened poetry, or his poetry, as kind of like a neurological abnormality, like Tourette syndrome. I said, oh, so your writing is like metrical Tourette syndrome? He said, yes, that's the way I see it. And I said, well, I could see a lot of poetry falling in that category, something compulsive, something you have to do. It's better than Tourette syndrome, believe me. I've been around people who had Tourette syndrome, and I think poetry is much more pleasant. Yeah. So go for that. Yeah, if I were advising someone who is brand new to poetry, I would just tell them to write what you see, write what you actually see happening. Do not try to embellish. Do not try to decorate, but just write exactly what you see and exactly what you're thinking, what those words are sounding like in your head. And I think that would be the best start of all. Don't bother with trying to do a form like a sonnet or anything that rhymed. Unless you have a compulsion to rhyme, then you can go ahead and do that. Not everybody has that gift or that ear, for meter and rhyme. But I would say keep it simple, keep it basic, and keep it true to your thoughts. And that's the way to go.